A showrunner is the creative lead on a project, an animated series. It can take different forms. It's often the creator of the show, and it could be the director, or it could be the head writer. So from my point of view, I was series producer of Go Jetters at CBeebies for BBC for 2 seasons, and effectively, in American terms, as you say, it's more American. That was show running. So I look after those episodes from script through to post production and dub, seeing the story through. So you're the key lead creative across an army of people. I'd say I got into kids TV before I had kids, but then I stayed because maybe I'm a big kid, and I loved it as a kind of healthy. I think you have to be responsible with kids TV, with the editorial, and you have to still make it a high bar production, but you have to instill values and good messages for kids rather than say reality TV or whatever, which I watch, but I was more interested in making something like that. And yes, I do have 2 sons who are now 10 and 13, so they were with me through the CBeebies years, but now they're like, Dad, can you do something older? So I've done a lot of preschool, but now I'm also branching out and doing older animation too. I think it's a fun, relatable job they want to hear about that Dad does. They look over my shoulder at the laptop if there's an animatic I'm looking at, or animation. Obviously, it's interesting to them rather than just coming home like they don't want to hear about Dad's work. So it's great for the kids from that. And also I mercilessly use them as a focus group. I test out my scripts on them. We have family table reads when I write a pilot, and I dish out characters, and they're as good as any actor. I'm biased, they're my kids, but they just get it and they're into it. So I just bounce ideas off them, and if there's you can't really find a more honest and maybe brutal at times audience of like, I don't get that gag, Dad, or that was funny. And yeah, so I just test stuff on them and enjoy it. Yeah. If there's an educational message, yep, Go Jetters has its geography, and you are trying to teach kids some key facts, but then we made sure it was being delivered by a disco dancing unicorn. So it's not here's the lesson, kids, and here's a boring bit. You never want it to be that. You wrap it in an action adventure for 11 minutes. You still have slapstick. You still have splats and characters face planting, but it's because they're trying to save the Eiffel Tower that you've learnt is in Paris in France. So yeah, but I love the challenge of the blend. I think you're right. We never want the learning to be like too on the nose and too up front. But I also think there's still a huge place, I must say, for violent slapstick, and just I say that with a small V for kids. But like my favourite ever show is Roadrunner. It's like Tom and Jerry I could watch all day. Those were my childhood shows, and there's still a huge place and huge channels and streamers that want that. Those shows have a place that are just comedy and just entertainment as much as the ones that are going to teach you something.
My practice would involve some meditation in the morning, normally meditation at night, and whereas you can't be mindful all day, it's a physical impossibility because we have work to do. But it's just taking little moments. For instance, after each task, I will probably take a nice deep breath in for 5 seconds and just say the word relax, and then go on to the next task. So I sort of practice that. When I'm eating, I do try and focus in on the flavours rather than just throwing things into my mouth. And the most important thing is going outside sometimes, especially in the lunch hour, and just looking at what's going on. But the thing is, you can do it anywhere. This is the thing. I just literally, sometimes I'll go outside. I teach as well. And I go outside in my lunch hour, and it might be raining, and I can stand there with an umbrella, and you just focus in on the noise on the umbrella and the water dropping and what's going on around you. It's just sort of, nobody notices you. That's the beauty. Everyone's so busy and wrapped up looking at their phones that you're invisible. But it's great, and it just refocuses you.
I'd say the best thing about doing what I do is the ability to create. So specifically, I'm more of a story and like sort of character designy level. The freedom to just express yourself through creating these narratives and characters is really fun, and being able to collaborate with a lot of different people in the process.
I feel like the best thing is possibly the fact that there's just so many stuff to do. Like, as we designed the whole game, there was a part when you just put the game together, like design different systems and stuff. But then we've got like a few weeks of just like designing little parts of the game, like how stuff will go, what are we doing, and more like kind of like narrative like stuff and how stuff is supposed. It's very hard to say it without saying actually what we're doing. But it's just like kind of like story things, and you have to research so many weird stuff, and you Google them, and it's just like, that's the best part of game design, I swear.
As a kid in primary school, I was always asked to draw pictures when it came to that time for all my mates. So I thought, oh, I think maybe I might be good at this. And then I loved it throughout secondary school, but I didn't know whether I wanted to do it as a job until only, well, not professionally, until like 5 years ago was when I started my business. But maybe 15 years before that, I was like, I definitely want to do this as a job.
Oh, I assume we've got the battery life and whatnot. Right, okay, that's a very good question. Anything to do with the Far Cry series. I think they're cracking. Maybe milked a bit too much at the moment, but I love the gameplay, the moment-to-moment gameplay, and the sense of humour it's got is brilliant. And oh gosh, FTL, Faster Than Light. No saves, you die. Cracking, genius bit of gaming there.
My inspiration to get into cinematography came through a passion I had for still photography. I'd been involved with a still photographer in New Zealand where I was brought up, assisting this person, and also at the same time taking stills for a local theatre production. And I discovered that I really enjoyed photographing people, and that led me to camera operating, which was an opportunity to photograph people. My involvement with Game of Thrones was right back at the very inception of it. It did a number of things that were really interesting. One of which was it introduced HBO to digital. They'd always shot film prior to that, and it introduced me and loads of other people to the Alexa camera, which was just a metal box for the tests. They said would be finished in time for production. They were right. But it gave me an opportunity to be involved in a television show, which I haven't done lots of over the years, and that was exciting. At that time, it wasn't a known hit. This guy used to follow us around on set. We go, who's that guy who looks like a sea captain, big burly guy with a beard? It was Martins. He was just coming to set just to see what we were doing. I had no idea. We're in Morocco, and there's this guy over there eating pizza by himself. So we got chatting, and it turns out to be Martins. I mean, from my point of view, it was a really exciting project to be involved in at that time. And I never went beyond season 1. However, it was great fun to set that up and to see it do so well. Sean Bean's death scene in Lord of the Rings was actually reshot, and it was reshot on the steps of the museum in Wellington, and they wanted a close-up of him dying to go into some other material that had been shot in the South Island in the forest. This limousine pulls up, out jumps Sean in costume. An art department person jumps out with a bag of topsoil and leaves and stuff, throws him down on the steps. So we were filming another project, and he lies down in there and gives us death throw moments. But yeah, that's another story.
So between like my first and second year of university here at Competi, during the foundation degree, I was like, I'm sinking a lot of time into League of Legends because, come on, I have aspirations of becoming pro. Then I realized I wasn't actually that good at it. Well, I was all right. I was above average. Let's say that. And then I was like, all right. So I've sunk a lot of time into this. I've learned the game a lot. I'm reviewing my own games, all that stuff. Let's actually turn that into something. And it's always kind of intrigued me to be in front of a camera. So I was like, okay, let's see how this pans out. And I was honestly, if I admit it, I was kind of half-assing it to begin with. Just like going into these volunteer casts, like half, not fully committed, and then suddenly I got invited to go to Canada in my third year, I think, and that was like 6 months after I started commentating, And then, yeah, that's when I started taking it super seriously and realized actually I can travel the world and make decent money off of this. Plus, it helps that I love League of Legends. Like, transferable skills, maybe there are a couple for in front of the camera skills, but most of it is like League of Legends knowledge. So I'm like, I can't actually do much with this besides something related to League. So yeah, let's go.
Okay, I mean, I discovered I could draw at primary school just because people would ask me to draw things. That was generally how it happens. When you're about this high, your friend just goes, draw me a dinosaur. And you go, oh, I quite like that. I quite enjoy it. I'll draw you another dinosaur. And it starts off in a really quite innocent way, really. You just love entertaining people with it. So I'd say it comes out of that experience as a kid, really, and it's just grown from there. I grew up in Bristol, obviously very famous for Aardman. I got a chance at school to do some work experience with Aardman, and that's where I discovered a love for animation, and I thought that was my direction. But that also luckily utilised my drawing skills. So even though the actual art of animation wasn't where my heart ended up being, the fact that I was practicing my drawing throughout that experience meant that I could quite easily, I say easily, I had to retrain quite a bit, but I could still leverage a transition into a new career. So I'd say that, yeah, find something you love, even if it's just part of that job, and at some point it'll be the right fit, I think. I think the things I've struggled with most as a kid, it was drawing faces, human faces, getting likeness down for so many different people. The weird thing as you learn to draw faces is the smallest of differences in a measurement of the mouth to the nose can make some person look recognisably them or someone completely different. And that just comes with practice. So that was probably one of the hardest things to get right first. But on top of that, I'd probably say the things I've struggled with most have been highly technical pieces of equipment where there's a lot going on, and it's very easy for those drawings to look a bit noisy.
My job is to be like a human barometer, so I have to read a situation pretty quickly, and I make films using my gut instinct. I didn't go to film school, so I just follow my nose.
So the visual effects industry is not very diverse. It's pretty much white middle-class men, and the population is 51% female, but the visual effects industry is 27% female. In London, it's 55% non-white, and yet the industry is something like 13%. So we don't really represent the audiences that we create content for or the communities that we live within. So I think there is an awareness issue. I don't think many people, and it's not just women, know that visual effects exists as a career, let alone what kind of jobs are available within that realm. So I think that's up to us as an industry to tell people about those opportunities. And then I think when they come into the industry, hopefully women will have the same opportunities available to them as men, and will progress through the ranks, and all will be well with the world.
I do think there's going to be a resurgence of bands just as a reaction to what people are listening to now. And I think whenever certain genres of music, sort of, if you like, if everyone listens to certain genres of music, you sometimes get bored. So I think there will be, not a scene, but I think there's an opportunity for, if you're a great guitar band, to be successful at the moment. I signed one myself on Thursday, a young band from Wigan called the Lathams, that I think are going to be a big band. Only 19, and they're the real deal, I think, because again, I mentioned a few bands earlier, so I've seen bands at the start, and so I know I've got good reference points. But I don't think it's going to be a revolution. I think streaming has sort of changed everything.
So Monday is a global job platform for people working in film and TV, commercials. So it's a place where you can find work in film industry, but also it's a big hub of people, so you can connect with like-minded people, do projects together. You can, if you are doing a film, you can find actors there, you can find your crew, voiceover artists, singers, and basically anywhere in the world, really.
So essentially, a key grip is a grip in charge of other grips. And we differ slightly from America, but essentially we all have the same titles. So I'll be in charge. The best boy grip will be my second in command. I'll have a couple of dolly grips who will push dollies. And then I'll have grips running around on the floor, and I'll have grips working on the crane. And that'll be my department. I'll work essentially camera support, so anything that goes under the camera. It could be the camera's handheld and we're just guiding the cameraman back, or it could be we're doing an incredibly complicated shot that involves a crane going through a window, travelling on a piece of machinery to then go through another window and follow an actor across to another building, perhaps, and we'll work out a way of doing that. Ron Howard is movie royalty, really, isn't he? But he's just a very nice man to be with on set. When you're talking to him, you're all he's interested in. And then once you've had your questions, then he'll move on to the next person. And the one thing he said is being a director is really just answering questions all day long. But he's very organised, he's great to work with, and you do know exactly where you are with him. And you can suggest stuff and you can discuss it.
He is an incredible musician. He's obviously known for being a collaborator. He has now, kind of like after his 3 solo albums, finally people are like, yeah, he's a frontman. And that's been amazing for him, because it's kind of like this like freedom that he has not had before, because he has collaborated a lot, but with that comes kind of always being like the background man. And now he has his own thing, which is going really well, and just continue to grow that. You know, he expects support. Like, he works with a lot of people very, very close to him. He has like a bit of a cottage industry going on, so we're all kind of family, which is really, really nice. It's very relationship based, and that happens with a lot of all the different teams. So even with PR and radio and everything, like, these are people that Johnny's very close to. So a lot of trust. There's a lot of trust on both sides, you know, like in terms of things that we can talk to each other about. You know, he expects me to be like super honest about everything, because then he can trust me to actually, like, you know, do the best thing for his professional career.
When I was a kid, from the age of about 10, and my first idol, hero in many aspects, was a wonderful man. He is a wonderful man called Drew Schofield, who lived across the road from me nana's van, and he was on the telly every week. Do you know what I mean? He was in a brilliant thing called Scully, which I loved as a kid. So he was my first big major inspiration as an actor, and because he lived across the road from me nana, it kind of gave me that. It was obtainable. Do you know what I mean? If Drew, who I see regularly going up and down the street with his wife, and then I see him on telly, do you know what I mean? And he's there across the road. It is obtainable. There is a way for me to try to get to do that myself. Do you know what I mean? So that was a big thing for me. The first day of every shoot for me, every job I'm on, no matter what it is, do you know what I mean? It's a big budget, it's a low budget, it's a short film, whatever it is. My first day, I always think I'm terrible. I always think I'm going to get the sack. It's like it's a brand new day at school, do you know what I mean? Every job is a brand new first day at a new school. So you always come away thinking, oh, maybe I should have done that differently, or I said, oh, why did I do that? Or, which is good, and I feel once that goes, well, then maybe it's time to pack it in, do you know what I mean? And hopefully for me, that will never go. I suppose the reason why me and Hannah set the production company up in the first place was to try to create opportunities for people who wouldn't necessarily or normally have those opportunities, do you know what I mean? To try and see that there is an outlet for their creativity. And me personally, you know, I feel it's integral that we invest and we find fresh writers, be them young, be them old, you know what I mean? But there's lots of stories out there to be told, and personally for me, it's trying to create that opportunity for storytellers to have a platform. There's a lot more stuff you can do yourself now, do you know what I mean? There's lots more outlets through all the mediums, and especially filmmaking. You know, you see films being made on iPhones and things like that, do you know what I mean? So it does show that you can try to create your own platform and get that out there in some way of, with YouTube and all of these different formats that are available now. And then it's that creativity and just try to keep creating, do you know what I mean? Because you never know what can happen.
Well, I guess it's fun being in lots of places at the same time. I know 2 days are the same in my week, which is good. It's just really nice working with sort of amazing creative people. It's always just amazing when you see, a project that you've worked on for a few weeks and then it's suddenly out in the world, whether it's on a billboard or in a museum or something like that. That's really satisfying, so it's good.
Children have always, I think, wanted the thing that's entertained them the most as a kid. Like, I don't know how serious it is really when it's like, oh, kids want to be YouTube gamers or influencers, because back 15, 20 years ago they wanted to be reality TV show stars, and before that, they wanted to be rock stars or footballers. So I think it's just whatever they see the most of, they want to replicate it.
Maybe ultimately what they'll become is yet again a thing that hasn't been invented yet.
Oh,
It'll be
100%.
the next wave thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure
Who
they'll
knows?
follow it, yeah. Because I wanted to be an animator when I was a very young kid, but I ended up just going to video production because it was easier than spending years on animation.
I just went into hiring animators because also easier than doing it yourself.
I'm sure they'll just follow it and just hopefully go somewhere better. Because we don't know if YouTube's going to exist by the time they've gotten a bit older.
I wish someone would delete it. Free me. Oh, it's super important to go into your work with fun and sincerity, because audiences are so perceptive. Like, if you're genuinely making content because you want to, and you're making the kind of things that you would enjoy, people can see that and they will enjoy it too. You could make a video of you watching paint dry, but if you are passionate about it, it will be interesting to an audience. But whereas if you've gone into it, like a lot of people I think do, trying to be successful, trying to replicate what other people do, people will see that and go, I don't like it. And maybe they won't be able to put their finger on why, but they won't. So I think, having fun, genuinely enjoying it is...
It's amazing motivation as well.
Yeah.
Like, we know the dark side of it, so their only motivation is to have fun.
Yeah, it's more of a state of mania than anything, really.
Dark side in terms of expectations not meeting reality, because a lot of people put their self-worth into views and stuff like that. So putting your self-worth into different value systems doesn't really work out. So if you're having fun with it, that's all that really matters.
Also, YouTube is to mental illness what a petri dish is to
Yeah.
bacteria. Like, it will
Take us away.
Yeah, it really, it's an environment that is incredibly corrosive to one's mental health, and that you are exposed to a lot of everything all the time, and it can really mix you up. So we know just how hard it can be, and not just in our own personal experience, but seeing other people, seeing a lot of second and third hand negative experiences. So
I think once again it's because it's new. It's because it's a relatively new platform. So all these things people are still working out. Like, laws are still being worked out around YouTube. So I think, the way that mental illness is both treated and propagated on YouTube it's still being figured out as we speak.
Can there be albums?
Yeah.
Dig Your Own Hole, Chemical Brothers, 1997. Probably have an Oasis album on there. Don't know which one. And probably one of the old Ministry Clubber's Guide to 99. One of the albums that really inspired me to get into dance music. Yeah.
My background was animation, so I've always studied performance and basically character animation. But I've always loved making films and telling stories. And really, as a director of the film, myself and Rich, the other director, we are involved in every part of the process with the creative vision of the film. So we're working with about 150 talented crew, about 20 or 30 animators who are the actors in a way. And we're really essentially every day for the production, we're going around directing everyone. The cameras, the lighting, the set dressing, everything. The actor, the guy who plays Sean, is actually a huge kids' TV personality called Justin Fletcher, Mr. Tumble, or Justin's House, or Giggle Biz. But he's always done Sean's voice for the last 20 years. It was his first job in the industry. And so, yes, we work with the actors in the voice record booth. Normally before and during the production, we'll go to London, which is where most of them are based, do our voice records with them, and really it'll be a case of getting hundreds of versions of different types of bleat and bar, because there's no dialogue in Sean. But they're very good at not just making sounds, but acting with their voice. It's a huge responsibility, like taking him and making a feature film with him. So, but we had a lot of great support, and we had, Pete and Dave, who set up Aardman, and Nick Park. They're all our creative counsel. So during the filmmaking process, they'd watch the reel and give us notes and feedback. So pressure, but really enjoyable pressure. So this is Lula, our new character in the film. She's an alien. She ends up on the farm by accident. So it's a bit of a sort of... It's a homage to all the sci-fi films that we grew up watching. And so Sean helps Lula find her way back home.
So ILM is, or was, the world's first visual effects company. We were created by George Lucas in 1975 when he was making a little sort of science fiction film that had a very low budget, and he wanted to achieve things in camera that had never been achieved before, with flying spaceships around and crashing them and blowing things up. And so he found a group of sort of like-minded high school dropouts in the Valley in LA and set up a company which he called Industrial Light and Magic. And over the years that company has evolved. So when it started out, it was all about practical effects using miniatures, and over the years we have not only embraced but also pioneered and invented CGI, basically the use of 3D computer graphics in animation and film, and lots of sort of technological advances, all emanated really out of the corridors of ILM. There are some very, very clever people there. One in particular, actually, that I will mention is our creative director, John Null, who recently celebrated 30 years since his student project, which was writing Adobe Photoshop. We have extreme levels of security on our phones, and it would take literally 30 seconds for me to call the office and they can have my phone wiped wherever it is in the world, and that applies to my laptop as well. That actually comes from, I won't go into too much detail, and I won't going to name any names, but about 5 or 6 years ago, someone at ILM who'd got a lot of sensitive material on their laptop got drunk in a bar in San Francisco and left that laptop in a bar, and the clients had to be informed that their sensitive material was out there, and it caused quite a sort of major incident. And so apparently there was a lot of sort of men in suits and sunglasses turned up at the ILM offices, and then ultimately the laptop was retrieved and no questions were asked. But since then they've implemented lots and lots of sort of levels of security. So we're allowed to take our stuff with us and work from home, but should we lose anything, they can just wipe it instantly. Initial perception would be that my job is to kind of creatively drive and almost direct any shots that have got visual effects in them, and that is the primary role, is that I'm like the creative director for visual effects shots, and I will liaise with the actual director of the movie to realise their vision and then steer and sculpt the work and my artists into getting the results that is ultimately going to make the director happy. There's a lot more to it than that, though. So I'm involved in a project from the very early outset, looking at the script and having to go through the script and determine what will be visual effects and what won't. And then from that work out what the methodology would be, what the costs to the client will be. And then you enter into a sort of a protracted process of bartering, basically, horse trading as to what they can afford versus what they want. And always the two things are different. You know, everybody always wants steak, but they want to pay minced beef prices. So you come into a happy agreement with the client about methodology and expectations, and then while we're on set, determining how we shoot it. I'm the one that decides where the green screen goes and how bright the green screen is, and whether we use a green screen at all, and if there's smoke or if there's no smoke, all that kind of thing. And then when we get into post-production, then that's when it's sort of the technical and the creative stuff takes over, and I'm sitting there in a dark room all day telling the artists what to make faster, what to make slower, what to make brighter, and what to make darker. I don't regret any of my career choices. I, at one point, was given the option of working on Inception, so potentially would have got an Oscar for that, and unfortunately said no. I don't regret the paths that I took, so that's a regret. One thing, actually, is that I don't know whether I would have got to supervise it, but ILM as a company, we actually had 1917 in the bag. and then just due to various scheduling and crewing issues, had to say we couldn't do the project, and lo and behold, it's gone and won the Oscar. So I think as a company we feel a little disappointed that we let that one slip. There's a lot. I mean, Han Solo was always a favourite. I have to say, probably actually Chewbacca, and so that's one of the great things about having the most of the time I spent working on Star Wars films. I spent it on Solo, and so whilst if you'd only worked on say Force Awakens or something like that, then obviously Luke Hamill and Harrison Ford are quite old now. I mean, there's not shadows of their former selves, but then the characters are very different to what they were in the 70s and the 80s, and most people sort of fell in love with. And then working on the Solo movie, there were some criticisms that it wouldn't be like working on a real Star Wars film because it wasn't Harrison Ford playing Han Solo. Well, the thing was, I was working with Chewbacca, and that's the real Chewbacca. So it didn't really matter whether this was 1975, 1985, or 2005 or 2015. I was working with Chewbacca, and this just something so cool about getting a cuddle off that Wookiee every morning. The fans will determine that. As long as people still want Star Wars and the people are willing to pay money to see it, it will keep getting made. I mean, where are we now? We've just had The Mandalorian, which to me I think is actually the best piece of Star Wars content in the last 10 years. In all honesty, I think The Mandalorian, particularly that final episode, is better than any of the new films, including Rogue One and Solo, which I worked on both. I think it's just absolutely pure genius. I loved it. So hopefully we'll get a load more stuff like that. There'll be a lot of TV. Clone Wars, the animated series, has just come back again, so they brought that back. And who knows? What I think we'll explore is maybe less of a sort of a shameless money-making drive by Disney to put a film out every year, which I think perhaps might have been the original plan. It'll be more of a sensible, measured approach of a film every couple of years, and I think what they'll want to do is sort of explore the idea a little bit like Marvel is also going to do, which there's only so many action adventures you can tell in a universe. So why don't we start exploring things like maybe we have a film that's a comedy, maybe there's a film that's a romance, maybe there's a film that's a detective thriller or something like that. Sort of exploring new storytelling genres, just painted against that canvas rather than you treating the Star Wars universe like our own universe, but telling different stories within that. And I think that's the way that Disney will keep Star Wars fresh and interesting for generations to come, hopefully.